Hello, everybody. Here's as always Captain Sidaris, and tonight I have the honor to talk to Max Loef, one of the developers of Star Trek Armada 3. Hi there, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good today. Weather's been cooling down a bit, so my room is now habitable again.
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean. I was today at a small festival for my daughter, not a music festival, just local stuff for kids, and it was so hot. Summer was a little bit back today.
Well, let's just say I just came back from a vacation in Spain, and the temperature in Spain was lower than it is over here. For the record, I live in the Netherlands, so it wasn't pleasant coming back.
It's really odd.
I know, right?
Yeah, we have the Star Trek September, so of course I have to ask you the first question here. What was your first contact with Star Trek? What was the first show you watched?
Oh, this was when I was a small boy back in 1995. I just remember my mom sitting me down and watching Next Gen, and then Voyager started airing, so I have the most childhood memories of TNG and Voyager. And well, once you get into that world, it sticks with you at such a young age. So that's how I got there. I mean, it also helped that my grandparents had the motion picture as a movie, as a DVD, and one of the few ones that I liked when I was over there. So I think it's a family thing in a way.
Oh, that's very nice to hear that it's a family thing. I wish that would be true in my family. My father also watched some stuff with me, but of course, nobody was a fan like me.
Well, my mom and my stepdad used to watch Star Trek. And this was back literally in like the 70s, and over here in the Netherlands, where you didn't just get like TV like you do those nowadays, but they'd get like the original series in German because that was all that was on.
The funny thing is that the dialogue in the German version of TOS is very, very different to the original version. They changed a lot.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Back then, they didn't take care about how close they are to the original. How the most important thing was how it's funny, basically, for the audience. And for some reason, they changed the name of the warp drive, or the definition warp in general, to soul. They thought it's much more cool to call everything soul.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
And what would you say is your favorite series?
Oh, Deep Space Nine, like easily. It's so much darker and more shades of gray rather than the always morally good versus morally bad, which you have more in TNG. I still love TNG, don't get me wrong, but DS9 has that gray area. One of my favorite episodes of DS9, for example, is In the Pale Moonlight, of course, but also Duet, because great episodes.
It's rarely that I hear that. I also love Duet. It's for me basically always the episode I name when somebody is complaining, yeah, the other shows also did have rough first seasons. Yeah, but they also had amazing episodes like Duet.
Exactly, because Duet's like season 1 of DS9. Like, there's a lot of early DS9 which is a bit meh. Okay, we of course all know the Alan Moraine episode. So, it was a Move Along Home, which is also, I think, season 1, and so you get all these weird ones, and then you smack in the middle of that, you got Duet, which is just like this tear-jerking episode with such obvious real life connections. It was amazing.
Also, at that time of the series, we didn't know so much about the Cardassians, the Bajorans,
Exactly.
the characters, and it worked. It still works such amazingly to everybody watching it. So yeah, I can really say all the classic Star Trek shows had, very bad episodes, but they also had amazing ones, and this is definitely one.
Especially for the early seasons, with a very tragic ending as well.
Yeah, also very unique in Star Trek, I would say.
Yeah.
Somebody important for the episode at least is dying.
Yeah, and then very unceremoniously as well.
Yeah.
Stabbed in the back.
And yeah, we also have, of course, to talk about games. What Star Trek games did you play?
All right, so this was because I was growing up, we had a computer at home, so PC. But as I was a kid, we didn't have money to buy a new game every other time, and buying video games back then was in physical stores. But our local library also had a bunch of Star Trek games, and you could like check them out at the library, and then you bring them back after a while. So, as a kid, I very early figured out the method of cracking PC software by downloading some no CD keys from very shady sites, or some no CD patches. But I think one of my first Trek games that I got, I think was Starfleet Command 3. And then later I found myself buying Elite Force 1 and Armada 2 I also got from the library a lot. But there was also this one really weird, it wasn't really a game, it was more like an interactive thing where you could look at like the bridges of the ships. And I know that the Voyager bridge, and I thought it was a game, and as a kid I was extremely disappointed because it was not a game. It was just like this interactive look at everything thing.
I think it was called Captain's Chair, something like that.
Yes, something like that, yes. And yeah, I think that my most memories are from Armada 2, Elite Force 1, and Starfleet Command 3, and later Elite Force 2 was one of the games that I bought. And my all-time favorite Bridge Commander. It's my favorite Trek game by a mile.
Good choice, definitely. Can't complain here.
It's also where my modding career really started. When it comes to Trek games, with other modding games, it started with Jedi Academy, actually, Jedi Outcast.
Okay, let's go directly into that. You mentioned that was your first modding experience, but how did you get into it? Just out of the blue, you decided, I want to make something better?
It started in Bridge Commander, basically. I just wanted to, I wanted to make my own ships, but I didn't have the technical know-how, and I was like 13, 14. But I did figure out that Bridge Commander had an SDK, and I just downloaded the mod tools, and I started tinkering with the model property editor, which was the Hardpoint tool. And with that, I made like different ship configurations and adjusted values, and made it, every kid makes their own super powerful god ship in the beginning. And yeah, I think that's how it started. And I eventually started learning a little bit of early Photoshop work, so replacing textures. And then as it went on, I learned how to do models and kit bashing. And well, these days I can do a lot better than that, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, I find it always so fascinating when people tell me they just used a little bit Photoshop there and here. There were no YouTube guides. There were nothing basically back then. A forum post maybe, or a book.
Yeah, forums were definitely a thing. I was on BCC, which is Bridge Commander Central, and even the Filefront forums back in the day, and that's how you learned. There was no video on YouTube explaining how to do something because there was no YouTube.
Yeah, the closest thing, not the closest thing, but the thing which helped the most was maybe ICQ back then.
MSN Messenger.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, that brings me back. That was one of the things that I spent a lot of time on with a bunch of people from BCC. Yeah, that was that's how I learned. And there was a guy that turned out to be living like a town away from mine, and we got together and he showed me some 3ds Max stuff. He gave me like a burned CD with 3ds Max on it, and that's how I started learning 3D stuff.
And what mod projects did you touch besides Bridge Commander?
Well, initially, I just did a little bit of things on my own, which never got anywhere. But my first big project that I joined was Star Trek, The Ultimate Universe for Star Trek Legacy. That was the first big project run by the amazing Chris Jones, who I'm still friends with on Facebook. Great guy. And that's where it really, got off, basically, where I started doing the big projects. Did a lot of 3D models for it. It has one of my first actual models that I made myself from scratch in there. It was the Enterprise era Bird of Prey. I was very proud of that being like a unique thing that wasn't like a kit bash or a retexture of an existing thing. But yeah, that project was very successful, and I met some people through that, which I still have contact with. Some of them I've lost contact with over the years. Some of them were on the Armada 3 project. It's that was one hell of an experience.
That's the sad part of the internet age, I think, that we lose contact to so many amazing people. Even if you have all the contact addresses and all the details, somehow you get out of touch and you can't even reach that person any longer.
I can reach most people from that from at least from the Ultimate Universe. I still know how to reach most of them.
If you have, of course, Also, a personal connection, it's easier, but if you have just a public information, which they also shared on many places and even different ones, it's sometimes hard to track those guys down.
Email addresses that no longer exist, messaging services that no longer exist, like MSN Messenger. Uh, we had a TeamSpeak server.
Nobody back then even thought that those forums would ever die out.
Yeah.
But of course, we should switch to the topic today. And also, outside of the Sins of the Solar Empire community, I guess not so many fans know that there is a Star Trek Armada 3. Can you give us maybe a short summary? What is this amazing mod? What does it do?
Well, Star Trek Armada 3 is basically a spiritual successor to Star Trek Armada 2. It was started by myself back in 2009-ish, and it grew to be very popular to the point that I never expected to get that big. And has endured many accolades, both from the community and just, from... I know for a fact that the developers of STO have played Armada 3 in the past. Yeah.
Oh, quite an honor.
So yeah, that's how it started, and I think we succeeded as a sequel to Armada 2, or spiritual successor. A whole bunch of fleet ops inspirations in there as well, because it just grew to be so massive, and I still can't believe that we put that down there.
And how did you came up with the idea to start this whole thing? Did you just wake up, hey, Sins of the Solar Empire is moddable, let's do it?
Basically, yeah. It's just, it started with just like, okay, so can I add my own ships and sins? And I remember the first model that I added was, first model that I ported successfully was the Norway class, because I replaced that, it was one of the Advent ships with the blue beams. And it grew from there. And once you have the Federation in place, you start adding the other races, and then at some point, I was like, oh, what am I going to call this? I'll call it Armada 3. I was inspired by like a poster somebody did back in the day for like a potential Armada 3, what they wanted from it.
Did you also play, how was it called? Was it Sacrifice of Angels 2? There was another Star Trek mod.
No, that's Sacrifice of Angels 2 is also Sins mod. Yeah, also, I didn't like what they were doing. It was more like not like that they are a bad mod or anything. They're a great project as well, done by many veterans in the community. I just had my own idea of what I wanted it to be, and I did play it, but very little.
I played it a little bit. I think the bad thing in that project was basically that they had also bad luck with the splitting of all the different DLCs which came later out. You had then a mod version which only worked for the original scenes, then one for the first expansion, then for the last. And it split it a little bit, and the gameplay, as you said, was not satisfying enough for me, at least. It was not what I expected, but of course it was a good project, a good team. But yeah, I can't sadly describe exactly what it was missing.
I almost forgot about that. I mean, when you mentioned it, I was like, yes, I mean, you had the whole entrenchment, diplomacy, and there was another one. And then Rebellion came out as like a sort of sequel-ish game. It was still like the same game, but it was like a standalone thing. And that made everything a lot easier. Also enhanced the graphics somewhat with getting actual shadows and stuff.
Also, was the project from the start on team member project, or did you start alone?
I started alone, and then it just grew from there. I got some people from Ultimate Universe involved, and that just grew. And we got more and more people in, and some people have joined and some people have left the team since then. But yeah, it basically just grew on its own because people enjoyed what they were seeing. One of the first people that joined was Mindwipe, and back in the day known as Technophobius, these days known as Gull Survives or Gold Ducat Gaming on YouTube. I don't know, he's not really active these days anymore. And Connor, who's still part of the team, who used to go by the nickname Kill All Ewoks.
Great name.
But yeah, it just grew, and over time we got some stuff done.
How big was the team in general?
I think at the high point we had like 20-25 team members, but that did include like the beta test team, which we had like a whole bunch of testers. I think the core team at the high point was like 10 people, It's been a while. I mean, it's been a literal decade, so I might be wrong on that because a lot of people came and went.
But it's nice that you had also the exchange of people, so a little bit fresh blood is coming into the team.
Yes. And when you get somebody new in the team, you get a whole different perspective on everything else, on some of the gameplay design decisions that you may have made like a year ago, and you realize, well, somebody goes like, well, yeah, that's great, but for this reason, this isn't really working, and that can make you go like, huh, I never really looked at it that way.
Is also the Sins of Solar Empire engine very friendly to mod, or is it a hard experience?
Okay, so back in the day, it was a bit easier because the forums were a lot more active. But yeah, there was a whole bunch of modders that already came over from like the Sins of Solar Empire, like Rebellion and Diplomacy and Entrenchment group. So there was some knowledge already in the community how to do it. The devs released some tools for the game, and the developers were also very open when it came to modding. And if you ever had an error, you could just search it on the forums, and the chances are that you would find it, what the issue was. So yeah, I would say they were very, very friendly to mod. The engine's very friendly to modding, and
we talked about that the game also got some DLCs. Did they also improve a little bit that aspect? I guess maybe also the RAM aspect.
Well, the RAM aspect is still an issue. They did the LAA large address aware feature is now like in the base game, but I mean the engine is still old at this point, so that has its own set of issues.
If I remember correctly, it's a 30-bit game engine.
32-bit, yeah. The DLC wise, they did a lot better because they added a little tag in the entity files, which are what controls what the thing do. Is like that says like DLC required with the DLC ID. So we could basically make sure that if we have a ship or a station that used the DLC functionality, we could just add a tag, which means that it wouldn't be there if you don't have the DLC, but it won't crash your game. Though eventually, of course, with the DLCs being as amazing as they are for Sins of Solar Empire Rebellion, we just recommended everybody just like, guys, just get the expansions. Trust us, it's worth it. And they were really cheap as well.
It's a strange thing. Normally, I try to play all the different versions from time to time to be up to date in the feeling what every expansion really brought to the table. But in Sins of a Solar Empire, I don't care. I just play Rebellion with all the DLCs, and it's the best game feeling.
Yeah, exactly. They slot in so seamlessly.
And it was in such a short time frame when it was released back then that you didn't have even a big transition. You couldn't even get used to one DLC, really. The next one was already there.
Mm-hmm. Though luckily, unlike Stellaris, which I don't like modding, they also didn't change a lot of how the core functionality works with each DLC. So sometimes we might need to change a couple of files, but it was never really something so game-breaking for us that it would take months or weeks to, really fix. It was always like a couple of days work. The team's like, all right, they changed some stuff. All right, what's wrong? Okay, so we need to modify ship files to add a new line, and it works. It wasn't like Stellaris where you'd have to like completely rebuild how your ships are like put together, which is part of the reason why we really stopped with Infinities, because we just didn't have the manpower to keep up with that.
I don't want to go too much into Stellaris, but I also can agree that it's very strange that every new DLC gives you the feeling, oh, I have to relearn the whole game.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have so many hours available for playing. That's hard.
Same. Full-time job, so.
And the devs from Sins of a Solar Empire, did they give you some early warning, hey, there is a big thing coming which could break your mod, or did they even help you sometimes?
Well, no, not back in the day, but these days, yeah, we get a bit of a heads up sometimes through means which I can't go into.
And in general, did you have a kind of a relationship with the developers back then?
Back then, not really. These days with Discord, it's a lot easier. So, if something's broke, we can ask it on the official Discord. We usually get an answer from the devs.
Okay, they're also still there. You mentioned that they will even warn you when something is coming, but It's amazing that they are still working on the game.
I mean, they just released a little balance patch. I don't think it's something major.
Yeah, I guess there will be no new DLC, but at least somebody is changing the light bulbs sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I know they're keeping the multiplayer servers alive, and the team behind Sins of Solar Empire Rebellion are amazing bunch of developers. Really great guys.
I didn't even ask you, when did you start playing Sins? Was this directly at release?
Yes, I got fascinated by it like pre-release because there was like one video like from a YouTuber back then that was just like showing it and just showed like how massive the fleets were. I'm like, oh, wow, that's amazing.
I sold personally also that game company for myself and for many others as the best game company out there, because they had this statement even on the forums multiple times that they will not only support the community but also release everything DRM free, because they said if our product is good, the community will buy it. If it's bad, they won't. So it's the best demo to have it out there. The players like it, they will buy it. And yeah, it was true.
Yeah. Plus, you can't really stop piracy.
Exactly. That was another reason. If we don't invest so much resources to stop that, we can invest that resource in making a good product. And this was back then. So wow, I wish everybody would be in that mindset, at least in the developer sense.
Yeah, I agree.
But going back, of course, to your mod, having experienced so many changes in Sins of Solar Empire, what would you say was the hardest thing to cope? How hard was even the transition from Sins to Armada?
Oh, yeah, I know what that is. I know exactly what the hardest thing is because we spent a whole bunch of time thinking about how we were going to do it. Multi-vector assault mode and saucer separation. That was the hardest thing to get working, to get like visually interesting as well. It was not easy. The person that ended up making the code for it was Lavo. He worked on the Sins of a Galactic Empire mod. Without him, we couldn't have done it. I did the particle work for it because there's a whole lot of cheating going on with that. So how multi-vector assault mode and then saucer separation in Sins 1 works is it makes the ship invisible and it spawns two frigates or the two parts or three parts at the exact same spot as the original ship. And because of that, the collisions push themselves out of the way. So it looks like they're separating because they have the same origin point on the 3D model. So, you know, they if you put the origin points all parts like at the same spot, it would look like the ship together. And then when a part of it, they had a whole buff chain connected to it. So if one of the parts dies, then all of the parts die. And how that would work is that normally when a ship dies, they have a file attached called a death explosion sequence. And that just creates like the little boom, the little explosions. And then, you know, at a certain point in time, there's a line in the code that says mesh disappears. So the model disappears at time index like 3 seconds. So how we did that is instead of the explosion being an explosion, it's a little effect of the pieces warping out or flying away really fast, which is the same what we did with Heroes, why they warp out, they don't explode. And then once that happens, a particle effect is played at the exact location of the actual ship, where the pieces come together and they stop moving the second they connect, and then the ship turns back visible, and you have your whole ship back. And there was a whole code thing where we got it so that if one of the parts was destroyed, you'd get a health debuff to your ship because, you know, technically it was damaged. But yeah, that was very interesting to figure out.
I guess many sleepless nights also.
Yeah, well, trying to get that particle right for me personally, I know that the code was one hell of a thing to get working as well. So thank you again, Lavo, for that.
I also would like to touch maybe the exact area you worked on the mod. Was it were you kind of an all-rounder? You did everything, or did you specialize in Armada 3?
Oh, I started out doing everything because I was on my own mostly at the beginning. So, but once more people came along, I mostly did two things, which was 3D models, three things, 3D models, particle effects, and sounds. Those were my jam, my thing to do. I do the visuals. And even with Age of the Federation, that has persisted where I'm mostly responsible for the visual stuff.
I guess nowadays you can even you can upgrade your skills so much easily with YouTube and stuff.
Yeah.
It's a whole other level of exploring development. I think you mentioned you are working in the IT.
Yes, I work in IT in the retail industry. I work for a large supermarket chain.
In development?
No, IT support.
Well, at least you are in the industry and know from modding at least how the things are working. That's, I think, the best thing what you can take into the real world from your hobbies. But what else would you say have you learned from modding these games for so many years?
One of the things I learned, I think my 3D skills are are the things that I learned most, because I got so much better than how I used to be. If I look at the stuff I did in the past compared to what I do now, it's a whole league of its own.
And have you also a favorite?
Favorite what? The ship that I've built, or
Feature, ship, whatever.
okay, so my favorite feature of Armada 3 is the music, because we got so much. We wanted to. I wanted to like homage to the classic Trek games. So there's a lot of Bridge Commander, Armada 1, Armada 2, DS9 The Fallen, some actual DS9 soundtracks, which we got access to later. But yeah, I just wanted to have that feeling of, the classic Trek that they had, the classic Trek games. And I think we have succeeded there. And on the ship side, one of my favorites is and always will be the Akira class.
Interesting. Why?
I know, I just loved it from the minute I saw it in First Contact. Thought it was cool. Had the whole torpedoes, and in the intro of Armada 1, it had like the chain reaction pulsar, and I was like, oh, that is cool.
Yeah, especially the introduction of this torpedo. It was really nicely done.
Yeah.
Then, of course, the follow-up question must be, what do you think about the NX, the flipped version of the Akira?
Oh, I love the NX. It's, people hated it back in the day, but I wasn't into it enough back then. I mean, remember, Enterprise was released in 2001. I just loved it. I love the NX. I think it's a beautiful ship.
I could never understand the hate the ship and the show in general got.
Yeah, I mean, some of the early seasons, like it is my least favorite Trek series. Actually, no, that's not true anymore. That's Discovery now. But out of I just it doesn't get good till season 3. I mean, some people don't like the Zindia arc. I really do. And season 4 is absolutely amazing, but it's 2 seasons of mediocrity, or 2 seasons were mediocre, and that's 2 out of 4 seasons, so half your series is meh.
That's true, but what I think they really did well, especially if you rewatch it a few times, as I have, the feeling of being the first out there. It was kind of like the quality a little bit of the episodes, of course, a little bit, everything was raw. The ship, the technology, everything was experimental. They even did some new storylines and new story ideas.
Yeah, and I wish they that's kind of what I really like season 4, because they went a lot further with it. I didn't like the beginning of season 4 with the going back to like World War II thing, because I thought I was like, well, that's nice, but we've done that. But I did like the Vulcan arc, the Romulan arc, the Terra Prime was interesting as well. The Klingon Augment arc was absolutely amazing. Also introduced a bunch of cool new ships, which was great. Yeah, season 4 is where it really started feeling like, all right, this show has got its image, it got its bearings, and then it was the end of the show, which was a shame. And we're not going to talk about the last episode.
What? I can't remember. The last 2 episodes were amazing.
No. No.
It was a 2-part, I can remember the final.
Yeah. See what you're doing there.
But I guess, yeah, this even maybe leads into our next segment, Ages of the Federation. You did not only Star Trek Armada 3, you did also another Sins of the Solar Empire mod. How did this happen?
So this started out as a mod called Axanar Strategic Operations, which was because the Axanar Prelude just came out, and I love the designs of ships they did in that. The adaptation of the JJ designs into something more Enterprise era fitting or post Enterprise era fitting it. And we wanted to do something smaller scale because Armada 3 was all about those massive, huge battles. So myself and Bane and some other people that were on the team back in the day, we wanted to do that and got some really good ideas with that. And we were still like finishing off Armada 3 because the problem with Armada 3 that was already an issue at that point was Sins of Solar Empire Rebellion can only handle so much content. So we can't just keep adding stuff to it. As much as fans want to go like, oh, why did you add this ship? Why didn't you add this ship? Well, because there are limits to what the game can handle. So we started that. Now, we stopped that for a bit when the whole like lawsuit thing happened, where the project was shut down and is still alive. And it was a weird time back at that point. And that grew into Ages of the Federation, where we expanded on the idea like, okay, so we're just going to do like Enterprise TOS, and we're going to create something cool, but on a smaller scale. So not like not hundreds of ships. We're going to have like a small task force, and so we wanted to make the ship combat a bit more in depth. So not as much as like, oh, I'm just going to throw 100 Akiras and 15 galaxies at a fleet. It's like, no, I want this ship because it has that ability, but I can only build one of them because they're expensive. So, that's going to protect this and that. And that was the whole mindset behind AOTF. And I think we've done really well with that, personally, with the thanks of many people that help with the balance. And a particular shout out to Sovereign Echo, who is now working as a developer on Sins of a Solar Empire 2. So that's how good he is.
Oh, I love it when modders upgrade to the developers. That's amazing, since they already also know how important modding is.
Mm-hmm.
They will tell that the colleagues. That's always good. You mentioned, of course, the different feel from Armada to Ages of the Federation, but were there also other major changes?
Well, yeah, I mean, the feeling is the whole thing, like I said, smaller scale. So with the newer release of Ages of the Federation, we went a lot more deeper. So originally it was just like you have the Federation, which was just like Enterprise TOS. We split that up into two factions, where you have the Coalition of Planets and the United Federation of Planets as separate things. And the Coalition is more built up as like early Starfleet with the help of the Andorians and the help of the Vulcans. So you get a lot of racial bonuses from each of that. As a UFP, you could colonize your planet, for example, as Coalition, you could colonize your planet with Vulcans or Andorians, and you get different bonuses on that, and really explore the difference between that. And with the UFP, we really went full TOS, get all your classic ships in there, including the Federation Dreadnought. But those two factions play very differently. So because they all can fight against each other, the Coalition has larger fleets, and some ships are cheaper and easier to build, while the Federation has like your big crews. You have your Constitutions, which are like powerhouses and amazingly strong, but they are a lot more expensive to build, which was a balance challenge, which I think Echo has succeeded massively into making fun.
Yeah, balancing is always hard, especially in games which have such a giant scope as Sins of Solar Empire.
Yes.
I guess that were also many sleepless nights over that aspect.
Well, not for me personally, because I don't personally deal with that aspect of the mod. I trust the team to do what they do best. In this case, very much Echo and Bane back in the day as well, of what is fun in gameplay. And we have good people that do feedback on things like that. So yeah, while I just focus on the visuals mostly.
You mentioned you had beta testers. Did you have a good relationship there? Basically a core team which tested like crazy and reported everything to you?
You always have. So we had a bunch of beta testers, and Tendra, for example, is one of the really ones that's been around for a while as well, and some other people. You really eventually get a group of people that really know what they're doing and know what to report back. So yeah, we did. It was an amazing bunch of people that tested it.
Having those giant mod projects more or less behind you now, would you say in hindsight there is a feature totally missing which you couldn't include because the engine couldn't handle or it was too complicated?
Yes. and it's still kind of an issue because we have to work our way around it. I think I was never really happy with how cloaking worked, both in Armada 3 and what limited way we have. We have something cool coming up for the Romulans in Age of the Federation in the next release, where we have a different method of doing cloak, because the problem with cloak and Sins is that you can turn a ship invisible and you can't see it, but you'll still see the icons on the map, and you'll still see where the fleet is, which kind of takes away the whole idea of cloak. And I think I wish that Sins had that option of like actually cloaking a ship. But yeah, that's one of the features where I'm like, we have it, but it's not that great. Though, like I said, we have something cool coming up with the Romulan release, which is the next release for AOTF, which would be great. And of course, the canceled AOTF 2. So when we were doing AOTF initially, we had it done, and we thought that it was going to be done with that. But then the Sims Remastered mod came out. And when the remastered mod came out, our original idea was, let's just make everything more beautiful. So we got the physically based rendering shaders. So shout out to Dolly and John for making the amazing remastered mod. And we started out as like, so we're just going to like make everything according to the new shader standards. Everything's going to look better. But as we went with that, we decided, oh, well, we could now change this, or, we wanted to add more TOS ships. Let's do that. So let's do a faction split, which actually, instead of just a small, like, visual overhaul, it turned into a massive redo of most of the mod. And unfortunately, because we had already announced Age of the Federation 2, that was a victim of that thing, because Age of the Federation 2 was going to focus on the motion picture era up to the beginning or mid of TNG. Our cutoff point was the Battle of Wolf 359, and yeah, that was a victim of things we couldn't do because of time and like, you can only do so much.
I guess another big limiting factor was that you couldn't include too many ships in the game. Because if I remember correctly, you only had so many slots on open ships to fill, basically, on the construction yards, the shipyards.
Yeah, absolutely correct. There's an absolute limit. That's why, for example, in Armada 3, we have the call-in fleets, and it works, but it's not a feature which is very intuitive. But on any future projects that we do, there's something you really got to look at. Like, you can have every ship from Trek, but does every ship fill a purpose? Does it have a clear role? For example, let's take an Ambassador and a Galaxy class, for example, right? They are both big Starfleet ships, and what role would they fill in a fleet? Is there too much overlap? Could you do without one or the other? And I think that, looking back, like nowadays, if I were to do something new, or if the team were to do something new, we'd be a lot more critical, actually, about what ships we would include in like a Star Trek or Star Wars project, or, anything else of the matter. Because it's a lot more fun when something has a clear function and goal.
Yeah, it's hard to really decide also what ships go in, which role do they fill? Are they just cannon fodder?
Exactly. If you take, especially when you start adding things like the ships from the Battle of Wolf 359, and you also have your fleet from like DS9, so what does a New Orleans do different than an Akira would do?
Yeah, or the Frankenstein fleet ships.
Oh, don't remind me. Some of them are really bad.
But I found it interesting that you included in Armada 3 I think it's the Jaeger class.
Yes, the Jaeger is beautiful. Don't hate on the Jaeger. If you want to hate on a ship, hate on the Elkins and hate on the USS Trieste. It's they are the worst. The Trieste has ion cannons instead of a bridge. Yes, I'm talking about the Star Wars Hoth Echo Base ion cannons.
Yeah, I never thought also that the Jaeger is basically perfect. It's the same thing which happened on Voyager. The Maquis and the Federation basically produced a baby together.
So if you leave an Intrepid class and a Maquis Raider in a room, and they love each other very much.
Yeah. All the fun stuff in the DMC.
Yeah, for like the stuff you see on Dominion Media Television, that's amazing as well.
You already mentioned also that there is a future for Ages of the Federation, but is there also a future for Armada 3?
At the moment, no. There's a bunch of people that are making some submods. I know that Lex is making a submod, and I know that Gulf Viridian is doing a submod. So they're keeping the project alive. But we've done what we wanted to do with Armada 3. So in our eyes as a team, Armada 3 is done. There won't be any add-ons. Like if there is like a patch for Sins and it absolutely breaks it, yeah, we'll see if we can fix it. But there's not going to be any new content for Armada 3 ever.
Something just came up in my mind. Does your mod also work with the GOG version, or is it only for the Steam?
It should work on the GOG version if they updated the GOG version to the latest version of Sins, which I'm not sure if they did. But if they are up to date with like the current version of Sins, then yes, it should absolutely work.
Because I'm always a big fan of archiving history, gaming history, of course. And yeah, the day when Steam shuts down is hopefully very, very far in the future, but
I hope it doesn't. I've got enough money in my Steam account, games-wise.
Me too, but even if it doesn't shut down, companies are crazy nowadays.
Yeah.
If you look at EA or Epic, what they are doing, if they don't like a game anymore, they will pull it from store and basically from history.
Yeah. There's a bunch of interesting YouTube videos about that, about a certain, I think it was a Driver San Francisco was an interesting example of that. I don't know if it was one of the Driver games where you can teleport between cars, which is like impossible to get.
I don't know if you heard about Unreal Tournament. They also removed all the master servers, which is okay. It's an old game. Yeah, you can do that. But they also removed it from every store. So there's no possibility to buy it anywhere.
Really? What, like Unreal Tournament 2004 and stuff like that?
Yeah, exactly. All Unreal Tournament.
Nah.
They removed every Unreal Tournament game, and they also had the single player. So you can't even say, there's nobody playing multiplayer. Yeah, there's a single player component, and people love to play old games, so why do that?
Yeah, I mean, UT 2004, I love that game. Why would they do that? That's stupid.
Yeah, and so I fear also fan favorites like Sins of a Solar Empire could be gone someday.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a shame. I'm checking now, but yes, it was removed from the Steam storefront. I'm checking EGS right now, Epic Game Store.
Only if you have bought it, of course you still have it. They can't remove it from your personal library, but nobody else can buy it anymore.
Oh wow, and it's not even on the Epic Game Store. Why would that's just weird.
Yeah, so even if Steam is the holy place currently, I fear some big decision could happen in the future and games will be removed. So I hope especially the modders are always having an eye out and make sure that the work is basically preserved in some way.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, GOG is doing a good job with that.
Talking also about the future, I want to talk about Sins of Solar Empire 2.
Yes, so what do you want to know?
What is your personal opinion? Will it be an amazing new grand title in RTS genre, or will it just be meh?
Sins of Solar Empire 2 is going to be absolutely amazing. I have already played it. I mean, I have it. If you think Sins 1 is moddable, Sins 2 is like 10 times more moddable than Sins 1 is. And we can do so many things with that. Like, I've looked at it. There's stuff we can do that I could never dream of in Sins 1. It's insane.
But can it cloak ships? Maybe.
I don't know. I mean, the game's not finished, so I don't know what's gonna come from any future releases of Sins 2, because they're in early access right now. So it's but what they've already shown to the public is amazing. I think it's going to be one of the best space strategy games that's going to be released in this or next year.
That sounds very, very nice. But guys, you have to hurry. If you want to make Star Trek Armada 4, there's already a project.
Wait, there's a Star Trek Armada 4 project? Where is that?
On Mod Database. It's just 1-2 guys who tried. I'm not sure how far he is. We interviewed him 2 years ago.
Well, they're using some of our models. Interesting. I've never seen this. Oh, I know these guys. No, I know these guys. We did give the models to them. Yeah, But yeah, I've spoken to the guy that's doing this, and a couple of years ago already. Yeah, it's good. I hope they do well, but I don't think they're gonna match what Sins 2 can do. And also, Homeworld 3 is also an amazing game that's coming out soon. It also looks absolutely stunning.
Oh yeah, that's also on the horizon. So where do you want to create Star Trek Armada 4? In what engine?
I never said we were creating Star Trek Armada 4.
Why not? It would be a good idea.
Well, I mean, we have plans for Sins 2, but we don't have any solid plans. We're pondering whatever we're going to do with Sins 2. So be that AOTF 2, be that Armada 4, be it porting over the Star Wars mod we're currently working on, Star Wars Strike Groups. Who knows what the future brings.
But I hear you are not burned out.
Oh, definitely not. I love this. I love this hobby, and I will continue to do so until I can no longer do it. I have a full-time job, yet I can still do a lot of this, so don't worry about it. I'm not going anywhere. But yeah, as I said, the team is discussing things, what we can do, but nothing's been decided.
Well, at least the talk is here.
Yes. We all love Sins 2, I can tell you that for a fact.
That's a good start. It would be bad if the team would hate the sequel.
No. If anything, like I said, technical little thing. So in Sins of Solar Empire 1, it's great, but in some things it's very rigid. So, for example, you have a file, an entity type for a planet. You have an entity type for a trade station, which has to have very specific lines in a very specific place in order to function. So, if you misplace a line on a planet type or on a station type, it will crash the game, and it will just be like, nope, won't work. In Sins 2, everything is a unit file. So a planet is a unit, a station is a unit, hell, even a missile is a unit. And everything is interchangeable between every unit type. So, for example, in Sins 1, we can't give shields to fighters because fighters don't have shields in the base game. It's just like, you can't assign shields to it. In Sins 2, I can make a fighter a functioning trade port. Like, it's flying around and it's a mobile trade port, but it's also a fighter class, So I can put turrets on a missile. I can make a missile be a coal battleship. I've seen some people already do some really crazy things with it. So it's a lot more flexible. Yeah. Plus, there's the component system, which is really cool. There's ground structures on planets, which are absolutely amazing. There's a lot more we can do. Stuff that you can't imagine coming from Sins 1. Which is another testament to the people that work in Ironclad and Stardock that are working on this amazing game. Shout out to the entire development team: Jarl and Brad, Blair, Uni, Dolly, Set. You guys are amazing.
You mentioned the magic word here, crashes. It's very interesting. I discussed this with Seven Saturn, my co-host. He and I experienced so many crashes in Armada 1 and 2 and in all the old Star Trek games basically, but never in the Sins engine. Even if you have big, huge fleet battles, the engine runs so well. Of course, the frame rate will drop a little bit and everything is maxed out, but it's still a stable network experience. You can't say that from many other RTS games, especially that scale.
Well, there's a reason for that. Sins of Solar Empire 1 Rebellion has very good built-in development tools. So there's a dev mode where if you have errors on, you basically it shows you what is wrong, and after a while you learn to recognize what each error does, and we try to fix as many as we can. And I think we've succeeded in that, especially again with a group of beta testers that are really great what they do, and they report a lot of things. You get that's how you get stable mods. So again, props to the people that worked on Sins.
Definitely. It's for a reason one of those titles I've always installed on my PC. But to be honest, most of the times I played with mods.
Yeah, that's I'd be lying if I were to say that this is the first time I've heard it, but no, I've heard a lot of people that literally bought the game for one mod or another, be it Armada 3 or the Sins of the Prophets, Dawn of the Reapers. There are a bunch of really amazing mods with really amazing mod teams out there. You have choke point games with the Sins of the Prophets mod, yeah, and you have they also, I think they merged with the Dawn of the Reapers team, something like that. There was a whole thing back a while back, and there's the Eve mod, which is absolutely amazing. Yeah, it's a really great community for modding, and one of the things that I really love about it is that even if we have like competing, if they're competing mods, there's no animosity between any of the mod teams. I think every single one of the mod teams gets along, and if there's ever an issue, everybody's never afraid to ask any questions towards each other. So it's a very wholesome community.
Yeah, I heard that from, I guess you know him also, Goa fan 77. He also mentioned it, that there's a lot of sharing of knowledge and even technology.
Yeah, I mean, I did a bunch of ships for Interregnum. Some of my older Star Destroyer models are in there, and yeah, nobody's ever too. There's no battle of egos, which there were in some other games. For I know that in Star Trek Legacy, when we were doing Ultimate Universe, there was another mod. I don't even remember the name of it anymore, but we were like huge competitors of each other, and we had like this unique tool, and we didn't want to share it with the other team because what if it takes away our advantage? And Sins doesn't have that. Sins, everybody's just like, hey, we got an issue, how can we help each other? So great, absolutely great community.
It's funny and very, very sad that this happens so often, especially in the Star Trek gaming community.
Yeah, well, I mean, trust me, the Star Wars gaming community is just as bad.
Okay, good to know. We are not alone here in that boat.
No, back in the day, there were a lot of mods and maps for Jedi Academy, which also had some competitive issues with each other.
One thing I also want to know, how do you play personal Sins of a Solar Empire? Do you play it on small maps, or do you choose the biggest maps, multiple star systems, basically?
I think somewhere in between. I'm more of a medium map guy. I really like lore maps. I made, I think one of the lore maps I built was called, I think it was one of the DS9 maps, was one that I built back in the day. I'd like to recreate like sort of stories from the series. So, you get the whole battle for DS9, you get the Bajoran wormhole. That's my jam, and how I play is I am an absolute turtler until I have a big enough fleet. I will turtle the shit out of the game. I will just sit behind the lines, build as many star bases and turrets as I can, and I am not very good at the game, but it doesn't stop me from enjoying it.
I think that's the most important part. You should enjoy it. Doesn't matter how good you are. If you have some good memories, why should that be a problem?
Exactly.
Coming slowly to a close, I just want to ask one more thing of you. What would you like to see basically in a new Star Trek game?
I want to see a new bridge commander. Yeah, just straight up a new bridge commanders, or something like where you actually fly a ship, do a thing. I also wouldn't mind seeing a Star Trek Online 2, because I do feel that the engine is showing its age in terms of how the gameplay works. I have some issues with it, but I would love to see a Bridge Commander 2, a more modern take on that thing, or a Legacy 2, something where you command one or two ships at most, and with the same mod ability as Bridge Commander 1, preferably. But yeah, that's my ultimate dream to see, which was almost a reality with Star Trek Excalibur, but that died out, unfortunately.
Oh, don't mention that. That's one of those mod projects I follow forever.
I also worked with that. The minion ships that you see in Armada 3, the two canon ones, were originally made by me for Star Trek Excalibur.
Do you know, does anybody work on that title? Is it officially dead?
No, I think it's officially dead at this point. My last contact with the team of that was years ago. I think on one of my old hard drives I have an old build of it, which is a shame, because it was great. So what they did have was cool, but I think that project suffered a bit from scope creep.
Yeah, I also think that way. I think if they would have released some content so that the community could interact with it, give feedback, and push morality a little bit in the team, that wouldn't happen. The project basically died.
I think one of the issues as well what they had is that they switched engines.
Yeah, that's also... this is the old story in even game development, that if you switch the engine 2, 3, 4 times, nothing good will come out of it.
Yeah, and I think one of the issues with that was that the guy who did the original engine disappeared. I think that was Nanobyte, who also did the Nano FX mod. He just disappeared, and well, nobody else could work on the engine, and thus, it was over.
But at least the Star Trek Armada 3 team is here stable.
Yeah.
And you want to do more work. That's amazing.
Yeah, we're currently working on finishing up the Romulans on Ages of the Federation. They are very, very far along. There's a bit of a delay, of course, because one of our main coder got hired by the team of Sins 2, so it takes his time up a bit. But we're still dedicated to get the Romulans out there. They're very, 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 very far along. You'll see some nice updated things on them visually as well. And yeah, we're also hard at work on the Star Wars mod that we're working on, which is Star Wars Strike Groups, which started off as a little side project between myself and Echo and kind of grew into something amazing, which was also the best April Fool's joke we've ever done.
I saw that picture today in your mod database on the page. Basically, there was a picture of the Star Destroyers and the galaxy.
Yeah, that was the whole idea was like, so we're gonna announce it on April 1st as a joke, and then we're gonna announce later. No, it's real, like, and people were like, it had the exact response in the community what we were hoping for, because in the trailer that Hobbs made, he just added a little, like, there was like a kidding because April Fool's, and like at the end there was like a single frame of totally not kidding. And everybody was just like, what, is it real? Is it not real? I don't understand. People were going nuts, and I loved it. It's the exact response that we wanted it to have.
So there was also a trailer. Nice. I have to watch it after that.
Yeah, you should check it out. And then we did a real trailer, which actually showed off stuff.
Do you also need help in modding, basically?
We will never say no to help. So anybody that knows Sins of Solar Empire scripting, because it's not really coding, feel free to knock on our Discord. If you're good at 3D modeling or 2D art, sound editing, whatever skills you have, just ask in the Discord. We'll always see if we can use more people. The only thing that we're not currently looking actively for is beta testers, because we already have a group of people that we can call on.
Well, I guess you have a big enough fan base to get beta testers very quickly.
Yes, our Discord is quite active as well. That helps.
So I would say this is the part of the video where I open the mic to you. Is there anything you would like to add? Anything we missed?
Go play Ages of the Federation. It's great. Go download it and live long and prosper, I guess. Also, again, I'd like to shout out to the rest of my team that's currently really active: Caesar, Connor, Donos, Obs, our lovely community manager, Hannah, and of course our people that are not really that active in Orbit have contributed so much to the project, including Bane, Draconis, Drazen, Neff, Tenra. Everybody, every single one of you guys is great. So thank you for all these years of working together and amazing something. We created something amazing, and I'm really, really proud of it.
I can only concur. Also to you and to the whole team, a big thank you. You made such a nice addition to the Star Trek gaming world. We play this game on so many LAN parties still to this day. We love it.
It's still crazy to hear. I mean, it's one of my weirdest moments was the fact that I realized we had more downloads than there are people that live in this city. And then it was more downloads than in half of the country. It's just like, that sort of scale is just like, wait, what? I remember that there was one point where we got like 20,000 views on our ModDB page on one day, and we were like, that's got to be a bug, right? Because we were like at a steady like 2,000-ish a day, and we just had this spike of 20,000, and it was like, what's going on? Who's sending bots to our ModDB page? And what turned out to have happened was that we got featured on PC Gamer, and it was like, what? PC Gamer? Our mod? And then later we were featured on Rock Paper Shotgun. Some other YouTube channels covered us, and they were like, Total Biscuit covered us once. Sorry, not Total. Yeah, Total Biscuit, I think it was. And some other like Nerd Cubed covered us. Of course, the XP Gamers covered us a lot. It's like, it's crazy to see like people that are known in the community to cover your work, and you're just like, nah, we're just do a little mod thing, you know, it's just a little project.
Well, it's not a little mod project, it's giant, I would say, and it's amazing.
I mean, yeah, I mean, to me, it'll still always be like, you know, just the thing I do in my pastime. God, even when we were as a mod team, we went to Star Trek Destination London one year, and we got like T-shirts with the Armada 3 logo printed on it. And there were people that walked up to us like, "Oh shit, you guys made this!" Like, yeah, it's like we did it as a joke, just like, "Hey, let's put T-shirts on and just see what happens." Eventually, started chatting with the Stowe devs there, and you know, we learned that yeah, they play our mod as well. And we're like, oh, people that make official Trek games play our stuff. What? What?
Well, maybe in the future they will include some of your concept art or some of your ships into it. Recently they did the Borg simulator in Star Trek Online.
Yes, I saw that. I love that. I was like, yeah. And you know, there's the iMod as well now in Stowe as well.
Yeah, so fingers crossed, and one of your ships gets also into it.
I mean, they already got all my favorites in there. Though, if the Stowe devs are listening, give me a screen accurate Melbourne Nebula, and I'll love you forever. And I do mean screen accurate. I want it like the little rec model was. I've seen what it's supposed to look like, and it's weird, and I love it.
Yeah, it's amazing feedback when you have real devs basically in front of you telling you that your work is good.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's unbelievable still at times.
Especially, I know that a few of the devs were also basically fans or modders.
Yeah.
So they know exactly your position also.
I mean, I know that since too that they're doing a lot for modding. It's going to be great. I have a lot of faith in Stardock and Ironclad that they're making something. They're making like the game they're making now is going to last just as long as Sins of Solar Empire Rebellion has lasted, and I think maybe even longer with how they're making it. It is one of the best optimized game engines I've ever seen, one of the most modding friendly game engines I've ever seen, and also still looking absolutely gorgeous.
Do you have a feeling when the release will be?
No, I have no clue. I'd say look on the official roadmap, which I think has something like I think the last thing was like next year somewhere where they're gonna have the full release. But yeah, I know that when it is done, it'll be absolutely stunning.
Looking forward to it. We can't have enough space games, especially Star Trek ones.
Yeah, I mean, if that's not your jam, you know what? Homeworld 3 is coming out soon, and as well, and that looks great as well.
True.
But yeah, go buy Sins 2, people. It's great. Don't moan about the fact that it's an Epic, because you know what? It's only a storefront, and it doesn't matter. It matters that the game is good.
Oh no, it's on Epic?
Only on Epic at the moment.
What are they doing? In the beginning of this video, I praised Stardock for doing this amazing DRM-free stuff, and now they're going to the worst place in hell.
I mean, it's not. It's just a game store. It's just a storefront, you know? I mean, one of the things that Epic does do is it does give the developers a bigger cut of their actual profits. So
that's true, but the reputation they are getting currently is also not good. Like I said, the UT stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but as a storefront, you know, their store works. It works fine. It downloads my game and it installs it. It's fine, you know. It's I remember back in the day, like when Steam came out, that people responded just that way to Steam. So
don't get me wrong. I don't say it's the platform. It's more the company behind it. I'm not against it. Multiple platforms like Steam, GOG, everything has its place, totally. But if we talk especially about platforms, what I really don't like in Epic is if you buy, for example, Star Wars Battlefront 2, you have to install it from the Epic client, have the Epic client in the background, start the EA client, and run both clients to play the game.
Well, Steam does that as well. That's more of an EA decision, though.
True, but in Steam, you can at least say, okay, I bought the key here. I just need the EA client.
I mean, sure, but that's semantics at that point. Also, good game, Star Wars Battlefront 2. People give it too much crap.
Oh, they did a 1080 on that one, definitely. But we are so far off topic, I would say. We leave it at that. That's it for this video. Leave us a comment, tell us what you think about the mod, and of course, play the game. Until next time, bye bye.
Bye bye.